My company defended a client who harassed me for 7 months because the client represented a large portion of our annual revenue. What my company did not seem to realize was that every email the client had sent had passed through our own servers, which were backed up hourly and retained for 3 years under our compliance policy. I worked in account management at a professional services firm. I had been handling a specific client account for about 2 years. The client was a senior vice president at a mid-size financial services company. He was the primary point of contact on a contract that represented about 18% of our firm's total annual revenue. The harassment started quietly. At first, it was compliments that seemed a little too personal. Then it was late-night emails with jokes that had nothing to do with the work. Then it was suggestions that we should meet privately outside of the business context. Then it was direct propositions. I did what I was supposed to do. I saved every message. I reported each escalation to my manager. I asked politely but firmly to be taken off the account. My manager was sympathetic. He said he understood. He said he would see what he could do. 3 weeks later, I was still on the account. I asked again. He said the leadership team was reviewing the situation. 2 months later, I was still on the account, and the client's messages had continued. I filed a formal complaint with HR in writing, with copies of the messages attached. HR acknowledged the complaint in writing. They said they would begin an investigation. The investigation was, as far as I could tell, a performance. No one from HR interviewed me in depth. No one interviewed the client. No one spoke to the people on my team who had seen some of his behavior in person. After 6 weeks, HR sent me a letter stating that the investigation was concluded, that no violation had been substantiated, and that the matter was closed. I was told, separately by my manager, that the client had been spoken to informally, and that I should try to rebuild the working relationship. I was furious, and I was careful. The next morning, I requested, through our internal IT support portal, a full export of all my work communications. This was a standard request available to any employee. I also requested a specific audit of all emails and messages exchanged with the client in question over the full course of our working relationship. Our firm had, as part of a financial services industry compliance policy, an hourly backup of every email that passed through the company's servers. These backups were retained for 3 years. The audit, I knew, would pull everything the client had sent to me, including messages I had already saved, but also including several messages he had sent and then deleted from his own side, and which would still exist on our backup servers. The audit arrived in 7 days. It included 41 messages the client had sent me that I had independently saved. It also included 6 messages he had sent me and then deleted from his sent items, which he had presumably hoped would never surface. Those 6 messages were among the most explicit he had ever sent. I contacted an employment attorney. She read the file and asked one question: "Do you want to stay at this firm after this is done?" I said no. She asked a second question: "Would you be willing to let this reach the client's own employer?" I said without pause, yes. We filed, within the next month, a formal complaint with the client's firm's own HR department, naming the specific senior vice president, attaching his messages, and requesting a formal investigation on their side. We also filed a claim against my own firm for the failure to reasonably protect an employee from a documented pattern of harassment. The client's firm took the complaint seriously. Financial services firms, I learned, have regulatory reasons to be extremely careful about the conduct of their senior employees. Within 2 weeks, the senior vice president had been placed on administrative leave. Within 6 weeks, he was terminated. Within 3 months, his professional license had been placed under review. My own firm, meanwhile, was facing a separate legal action. The settlement with my firm was reached in about 4 months. I am not at liberty to disclose the specific amount. I can say it included a full release from my non-compete, a formal apology in writing from the managing director, a multiple-year severance, and the departure from the firm of the HR director who had closed my original complaint without a real investigation. I took a year off. I traveled. I saw my family. I started eventually a small consulting practice of my own. I have never returned to corporate employment. I did not need to. The firm lost the client account within the year, which, given the circumstances, was probably for the best. Here is what I learned. Companies sometimes forget that the infrastructure they built to satisfy compliance regulators is the same infrastructure that can be used against them when they fail their own employees. Every email you ever received at work, every message you ever sent through work platforms, every chat thread you ever participated in is most likely stored somewhere on a server your employer controls. If you are being harassed and your employer will not protect you, that server can. Have you ever had an employer choose a client over you? Tell me in the comments.